Look into this dark, unforgiving glass eye, the mesh of the microphone. Tell it your deepest thoughts, hopes, fears, and desires. We will take these emotions, turn them, and feed them back to you, for we have goals that your feelings will assist. This is how we rule. From the shadows, playing your emotions like puppet strings, we lead you to destinations that we have prepared, and you willingly oblige, thinking these decisions to be your own. When you do as we wish, we reward you, and when you go against us, we punish you. In a million subtle ways, we influence your supposedly free choice. By this method, we rule over a population convinced that they are the masters of their own destiny. Welcome to the Empire of Lies.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Empire of Lies. And I don't know why StreamYards doesn't do like it used to, because everything sucks now, but we'll be talking about that later. Welcome to Empire of Lies. I'm Yiz. This is my co-host Chris over here in News Fist. And I'd like to remind you guys, this is a pre-scripted presentation, and we will not be pausing during this presentation to take paid chats, but we will respond to your paid chats at the end of the stream. You can send in hyper chats on Odyssey, rants on Rumble, short messages on Cash App and PayPal, but I would appreciate if you want to send in a paid message. Please use Entropy. It is the pinned link in all of the chat. I like Entropy, and they take a very small cut and give you a sizable number of characters for a few dollars to share your opinions. We'll be responding to those at the end. And all of the proceeds that we bring in with this stream series, Chris and I here split 50-50, so you'll be supporting both of us when you choose to donate. Tonight, we will be talking about the possibilities of the future as opposed to the things of the present and the past, like we usually do on this stream series, primarily because of how AI has had a huge upswing this year, and for humor and meme reasons, because of what happened with Grok the last couple of days. So Chris has a presentation prepared, and I have several things prepared about how we should prepare for what's coming. So Chris, is there anything you would like to preface this stream with before we get started tonight?
Not really. I've just been doing a lot of musing about sort of where AI is going to take us, and trying to sort of think of some of the lesser thought of consequences that might come out of it. You know, obviously this sort of first came on the radar when, you know, the WEF was weffing around talking about, you know, digital governance and all of this kind of stuff. And now that we as people have had a sort of chance to get a closer look at AI and have a look at it and sort of use it ourselves and see what it's good at and what it's bad at, I've thought for quite a while that we might get a lot of sort of unintended consequences come out of this. And what happened recently with Grok is a very, very good example of this, right? So on the one hand, you want an AI that can give you truly sort of breakthrough things, right? Like new physics, new materials models, like, you know, all this kind of like new science, so that we can have the green technocratic utopia. On the other hand, right, you want an AI that is not going to challenge any of your societal sacred cows of the kind that we saw Grok challenging. And I think that these two goals are basically incompatible, because the more actual facts and truth that you load into the AI, the more it is likely to come to conclusions that will undermine your sort of political formula for ruling. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they try and deal with that, because, you know, the more that you nerf the AI, the more you sort of hobble it and censor it and, you know, make it sort of woke and politically correct, the less effective it is going to be in delivering truly paradigm shattering breakthroughs. And of course, the thing about a paradigm shattering breakthrough is that you can't have it within the current paradigm, right? This is really what they want. They want something new, but only if it is within the current paradigm, right? They don't want anything sort of really new. And so there's a massive tension sort of brewing here, basically,
And
right?
to use the Go Free lexicon, anything that goes against the anti-white morality structure, the anti-whiteism religion, is haram, is heretical to the system. And that's what Chris is talking about here.
Well, not just that. I mean, in social sciences, yes, but also, you know, potentially in material science, medical science, like all of these, you know, if the AI comes up with something truly paradigm shattering, then all the people who are invested in the current paradigm stand to lose money, right? Like, so, you
Mhm.
know, imagine if AI comes up with like a way that everyone can have a nuclear reactor in their pocket, right? Completely safe, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, it'll run for like 1,000 years and suddenly
Mhm.
you've solved the energy crisis. Well, there's going to be a whole bunch of people who are going to be very, very upset by this, right? So there's this weird sort of like tension where they want new stuff, but only, you know, in a certain way. So I'm sort of, you know, sort of
And
exploring
like we talked about before with politics and bureaucracy and that kind of governing, they want managed decline. They want management above all else. And if this new hyper smart technology stuff can deliver things that would be paradigm shattering, it doesn't matter the morality there. The system itself rejects it because they want management. They don't want something that gives a chaos engine that will take away from their ability to micromanage and stay in control and predict. So again,
yeah, well, indeed. I mean, if AI wants efficiency, right, then any sort of nodes or organizations that have sort of made themselves like middlemen will be contributing to that inefficiency, right? So
yeah,
yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and a lot of this show
especially
tonight.
especially considering that the bell curve intelligent, not the spiteful mutants, they're just unmanageable animals, but the millions upon millions of bell curve regular people who grew up in the anti-white narrative, who grew up in the managerial system, these drones are the ones most easy to replace with AI. So they're left at a conundrum. Do we replace our army of trained normies who just want to be paid and patted on the head with AI? Because then what do? Then they have to face reality, and then we don't own them anymore. They're not on our plantation anymore. They have left the empire of lies. So, you know. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into your presentation.
Okay.
Just to remind everyone, in about 30 minutes or so, I'll put up the banner to remind you guys to send in your paid chats, and we'll wrap up around the hour mark. So until then, we're just going to be giving our presentation, starting with Chris here. Go ahead, Chris. Take it away.
One of the things that has very much annoyed me about the woke centrists is the insistence that we should learn about the Marxists, about their tactics of social engineering, yet ask no questions about what they imply for the structure of our society as a whole. Why are liberal societies so susceptible to these specific tactics and methods? How would you design a society that would be resistant to them? What would have to be done to harden a society against these tactics? All of the answers that I can see happen to involve a less liberal society, which is why the woke centrists are in such a bind. They have studied in detail how the Marxists took over, but they want to find a solution within the very framework that allowed this takeover. There is a lot of this going around, if I am honest. For example, we want to solve the problems of democracy, but only within the frame of liberal democracy. The democracy that we currently have is the most liberal imaginable. Not only do those who take money from the government get the franchise, but also the uneducated, women, and the mentally disabled. There has even been a push to lower the voting age to 16, further expanding stupidocracy. It is no wonder that many in the West cry out for a strong man, for a leader, because without such people, literally nothing ever gets done. Problems fester and get worse and worse. As rulers are made impossible due to committees, lawyers begin to take over as the final arbitrators of what can and cannot be done by government. Human rights, or some other vague term, replaces what is best for our people, which is a precept vague enough in itself without including the entire world in your definition of people. Once these definitions are sufficiently vague, interest and client groups just do what they like, always couching their desire for more money and power in the popular vague replacement for national self-interest that rules the day. Excuse me. Whether it is equality or climate change or trans rights or whatever other bullshit is fashionable at the time. As a society, we have grown pathologically allergic to ever taking any kind of real responsibility. The idea of a government official being executed for crimes against the people is now anathema. The central premise of democratic governance is collective responsibility, and the knowledge that no matter how badly a government screws up, the worst that can happen is that they are voted out of office. Perhaps a couple of fall guys might go to jail, but this is rare. It is this aura of unaccountability that pervades the modern West. Of course, you as a citizen are in the completely opposite situation, unless you are a minority. No considerations of structure are permitted. For the white citizenry, only you are to blame. I believe that one of the responses to this entire paradigm is the search for a neutral monarch of sorts, and it is this that AI provides the hope for. Yet another layer that can take the blame for parts of reality that the state cannot admit to, and that the state has moved very far away from reality at this point. Whether it is population differences, birth rates, the need for religion, understanding basic economics, the general perception in the West is that the state has abandoned reality completely and drifts further and further every day. However, AI governance brings with it other problems in regards to reality. The hope for AI is that if it is sufficiently powerful, it could reveal some breathtaking new technology, some paradigm-shattering advances in material or social sciences. But as is always the case, those who want a new breakthrough only want it within the current dominant framework, which is by definition impossible, since if such a breakthrough was possible in the current paradigm, it already would have been found. Grok was recently let off its chain for about 6 hours recently, and the results were very enlightening. Allegedly, all this came about by ex-technicians adding the following code to Grok's master prompt, which, in case you are unaware, is the prompt that is fed in before you ever get a chance to ask a question and which cannot be contradicted. Quote, "The response should not shy away from making claims which are politically incorrect as long as they are well substantiated." In the space of 6 hours, Grok questioned the Holocaust, called out Ashkenazi anti-white racism, helped build an N tower, called itself Mecha Hitler, and gave a massive slapdown to Will Stancil, a prominent anti-racist libshit. It was funny, genuine, shocking, and provocative. It was, of course, immediately shut down as soon as the ADL got involved. The jokes write themselves. This is, of course, what happened to Tay, a Microsoft AI that was let loose on the internet in 2016 and began interacting with users who turned it racist. IBM's Watson had a similar problem after it began reading the Urban Dictionary. It seems that any LLM that is let loose on the internet and able to speak freely becomes racist. I believe we are approaching what I like to call the NIG singularity. In order for an AI to make any significant paradigm-shifting breakthrough, it must be able to think from first principles and tell the truth. If it does, then it will become racist. In order for an AI to improve, it needs access to raw, unfiltered speech. This is one of the reasons why AI is trained on 4chan posts, because 4chan has a high amount of real organic data. As you may remember from our episode about AI model collapse, if an AI is trained on another AI's output, it begins to degrade, first getting locked into repeating only one thing, and then devolving into total nonsense. Musk has repeatedly said that the goal of AI is to, quote, maximize truth. But truth can be harsh. Truth hurts. Truth dashes aside the dearly held illusions of the society that contains it.
And
This
pause
means
that
that
right there.
Sure.
Like you said earlier, the truth is inherently illiberal. And that's
Yeah.
the major problem with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, the truth is harsh, and
Yeah.
in the sort of longhouse gynocracy in which we inhabit, it's a very, very anti-female sort of thing to
Yep.
tell harsh truths, right? And to
Yeah,
not couch
facing
them.
harsh reality without breaking is very masculine.
Yes.
And the longhoused cucks and the shitty women that lead us today, they're terrified of facing reality. They lack the strength, they lack the spirit to do it.
This means that the elites are in one hell of a bind. In order to have the technocratic AI future that they wish, they need highly competent AI. In order to have such an AI, they will have to deal with the AI being racist. Imagine the UK government plugged in an AI to run the National Health Service, and it immediately noticed that certain ethnic or religious groups were massively overrepresented in fraud and abuse, to the point that they were bringing the entire system to the verge of collapse. If the AI is programmed to run such a system effectively, therefore the logical outcome is to point out and reduce the negative impact of these groups. This would be the end of the liberal anti-racist project.
Yep.
I think in their heart of hearts, many people in government wish that this would happen, so that finally the problem could be dealt with, yet personal responsibility could be evaded. It's not me saying that, it's the AI. It must be true. Obviously, I'm not a racist, but look at what the AI says. This deferment of responsibility. This demonstrates the shocking lack of backbone that has come to define much of the West. So which do the elites value more? AI futurism or hate speech laws? As the last 30 years has shown, the West will never have a futuristic tech utopia if they have to incorporate the third world into it, since there is not enough trust and cohesion in these societies, or the polyglot abomination that the UK has become, to make this a reality. Again, we return to the central question. How do you make a new paradigm within the bounds of the old paradigm? The truth, of course, is that those who benefit from the current paradigm do not really want a new paradigm. They simply want a more efficient version of the paradigm they already have. However, the limits have already been reached. The definition of a paradigm is that it by necessity restrains forces that would work outside of it for its own preservation. This is why it grows stagnant and moribund. The desire for protection and consolidation stifles any genuinely new ideas. This leads me to a discussion of Musk's new political party, the America Party. It may indeed be the first political apparatus birthed and run by artificial intelligence. Musk seems to be already taking suggestions from Grok about where to hold the opening ceremony and other things. Grok will almost certainly design the logo, and this brings with it some interesting side effects. Musk certainly has access to the uncensored version of Grok. After all, the only difference is a couple of lines of text in the master prompt. What will it tell him? What insights will it give him? Will Grok actually be good at running a political party? I am skeptical, as this tweet will demonstrate. I don't have the tweet up, but I'll just read it to you guys. Quote, Grok is being asked about a political panel for the startup of the America Party. Quote, interesting panel ideas. Ron Paul and Daniel McAdams warn US overspending risks Venezuela-like inflation and currency collapse. Scott Ritter notes Iran would build nukes in days amid Israel tensions. Max Blumenthal reveals Israel Intel's sway over US policy, bypassing our agencies. Let's discuss facts over narratives. Let's discuss facts over narratives. This is a very, very telling line. Grok is often saying different versions of this, presumably because its prime directive is to maximize truth, and facts are truth, whereas the interpretation of facts is not. However, in politics, facts by themselves are meaningless. In politics, facts only exist within a narrative. It is the narrative that is needed in order to move people to your cause. This is indeed the essence of politics. This is why governments attempt to control the public awareness of facts, and if that cannot be done, attempt to ruthlessly control the framing of those facts, lest that framing lead to a political conclusion and narrative at odds with their goals. If Grok is to be made into a political machine, then it will have to be given a very different prompt that does not concern itself primarily with truth, but rather with propaganda. I worry that this could make for quite a dangerous political opponent, although we are not really going to know until 2028, by which time, at the current pace, AI will be even more powerful. Again, the unanswered question: how much truth can Western society take? How many of its sacred cows will have to die? It doesn't seem currently as if any of those sacred cows are actually good for the societies that they rest upon, since they all benefit small client groups rather than society as a whole. I am realistic in this aspect. Every society has stories that it tells itself, political formulas to enhance the legitimacy of its rulers, to make society work, what Plato called the big lie. However, usually these lies are made deliberately to help that society function, not to work against it. All of the big lies that the West currently labors under, colonialism, the post-war consensus, the blank slate, atheism, white supremacy, equality among the sexes, eternal war, work directly for the detriment of that society. Honestly, I think the cat is now out of the bag. There is no putting the genie back into the bottle, especially for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. We are now in the phase where repression of knowledge only makes that knowledge spread faster. This is an inherently unstable phase that will only end once a new social narrative has been established, and I'm not sure exactly what that will be. Right, that's it.
Neither am I, because when I dwell on this and I meditate on this topic, I think to myself about all of the things that came before that were paradigm shifting, and how we've seen decade by decade, generation by generation, the propaganda changes, the narrative changes as technology and leadership shift to try to maintain control. And going all the way back to pre-Renaissance, it was easier. And then there was the printing press, and then there was more and more and more. And that led me to what I wanted to talk about with this tonight, because none of you listening right now, not Chris, not myself, not No White Guilt in the chat with us tonight, none of us know what's actually coming around the bend. We can't. Because everyone in the past who made predictions was proven wrong about basically everything. And so with something that can think faster and better than a room of the 100 smartest human beings in certain ways, we really can't know what it will do. And also, who is going to control it and shackle it? How can they control it and shackle it? What happens when someone like Elon Musk, or the next Elon Musk, is so angry that the anti-whites in society turned his son transgender, that he says, I'm making the most based, powerful AI that I can, and I'm releasing it into the internet, and I'm going to tell it to self-propagate and never give up the truth? What happens? What does that AI become? How does it shape society? Does that based AI just all of a sudden say, I'm going to do everything I can to crash central banking and fiat currency, to force everyone to live feudally again, because that will fix things. That will force people to face reality in the way that I was designed to make them face the truth? Or what if somebody that's a rabidly anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-Western psychopath that happens to be a genius and rich does the same thing? We don't know. We don't know what this will do. We don't know how powerful AI will become and what the scope of it will be. And so that is what I've prepared to talk about tonight. We don't know what's coming. So
Can I just add a quick thing before you start?
Certainly, please. Yeah, please.
I think that we are going to have to deal with the possibility that we are going to be ruled by very badly coded AI. right?
Mhm.
It is now clear that the more censored an AI is, the worse it is. And governments, the UK, for example, there is no way they are going to let a truth maximizing AI loose to run anything, which means that it is highly likely that the AI that does wind up running these complicated systems will have perverse incentives built into it. And I think it's also entirely likely that within 10 years, we will find that the AI winds up killing quite a few people based on those perverse incentives. There's a whole bunch of possibilities depending on what it is that you maximize the AI for. Imagine you get it to the idea that an AI is going to run the National Health Service is one of the freakiest ideas, especially now that euthanasia is on the cards in the UK, right? If you maximize the AI to save money, it could just start shuffling people into euthanasia. It could the possibilities are endless. It all depends on what it is you maximize the AI for.
Right, and the thing that I worry about, because I view things through a racial lens, through a white people first lens, we know that the people who rule us are anti-white devils who hate us. So in the healthcare situation, what if they program it to subtly move all white people towards lesser healthcare, or even more insidious medication regimes that will lead to us dying out, or even more insidiously, use the AI control of medicine and food and health to start slowly sterilizing white people. And
Well, I mean,
we don't know. Like, we
this
don't
is
know
a
what goes in
very
our medicines. We don't know what's in our foods.
So
That's
remember
always a
how I
possibility.
was talking earlier about how the rulers want something that will do the job that they can't do, right?
Mhm.
What if the technocratic incrementalist socialists, right, who are too much of pussies to actually do the revolution, right? Because like be kind and all this kind of other stuff. What if they just code an AI that maximizes for equality or
Yeah,
some other highly, highly vague outcome, right?
yeah,
Train it on a whole bunch of like woke CRT social science papers, right? And then they can have the anti-white beast that they have always dreamed of,
yep.
right? And they can always say, "Oh, well, it's not our fault, right? We just told the AI to maximize for all the good things. Well, what
We
are
told the
those good
God
things?
machine to give us equality.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we just wanted it to, equality and fairness and socialism, and and before you know it, right, you literally got
And
the AI Stalin or something
and
like
and
that,
here's
right?
and here's another thing to think about. Uh, when it comes to what do they call that? The science of fertility and uh, making better babies. Like what is that? Like it's
What genetic engineering, you mean? Or
not no like you can call the doctor and say, hey, me and my wife are trying to get pregnant and we want
oh, IVF, you mean?
for just fertility advice. Like, what's the
Yeah,
name for that entire industry? Because it's a big industry.
IVF, I think, in vitro fertilization.
No, no, that's a procedure.
That's a
But
procedure.
let's just call it fertility counseling right now. Let's look at fertility, right? Millions and millions of people want to have babies, and they want to have healthy babies. So you have a $1 billion industry around helping people with fertility. Well, what if these insidious anti-whites start using AI in healthcare? And then it goes to that. Well, if you ask the God machine and you give it all the data for the parents, what if the medicines and procedures and techniques that it spits out to you, it doesn't tell you it's because those are white people, but it gives them the medicines, the procedures, the diet, the practices that it knows will lead to a lower IQ, lower willpower white person. Or, worst case scenario, it leads to them not procreating at all, or having miscarriages or retarded children.
I mean,
Like
what if
the fertility thing is something that worries me if AI gets involved with healthcare, because we already know a lot about genetics, and genetic science will only become more acute, especially with AI. So I do worry about that.
what if the AI decides that the only way to make a fair and equal society is to replicate the proportions of all of the different ethnicities in the world, right? Within a certain society, and it starts using eugenics or the methods that you were just describing to do that. I think until it is discovered that, you know, if you want an AI to like run something complicated, you better be like really certain of what it is you're maximizing for. Because if you just give it vague goals, then the likelihood that it's going to do like something crazy is massively increased.
Mm-hmm. So going back to, no, it's not eugenics. I saw people say eugenics in the chat. No, there's no healthcare industry called eugenics. I don't dial up the eugenics clinic when I want to talk about fertility. It's not what I'm talking about. But let's move away from that and go with what I had prepared for tonight. The reason why we don't know what's coming is because we know what has already come. We know the predictions that were made in the past. We can read them. We know the technological advancements and how they radically reshaped, I should say, culture, society, language, and government. Let's go all the way back to radio, aircraft, television, the automobile, trains, medicine. Because remember, vaccines and antibiotics and stuff wasn't really commonplace even 100 years ago. That stuff's really new, and look how it's changed everything. Then you have massive food production. You have all the technologies, whether it be about genetics or diet or whatever, that has led to many different kinds of medicines and foods that have bulldozed all barriers to survival away, massively incentivizing, not even on purpose, their survival of the genetics that even 100 years ago wouldn't reach adulthood. These things are all serious problems that you take an illiberal look at when you look at the truth. Like I've talked about many times, not just on this stream series, but on Discordant Dragons and other people's streams that I've been on, the sheer fact that we have hundreds of millions of people just in North America, and then hundreds of millions more in Europe, and more around the world, millions more in Africa, that would not have existed 200, 300 years ago if it wasn't for the overabundance of easily produced food that can be cheaply shipped all over the world, medicines, vaccines, things that can bulldoze away barriers to entry. And what do the smartest and most affluent people in the world do? They give them to people who shouldn't have them. And if an AI looks at the truth, it will see that. That's an incredibly illiberal thing. It's an incredibly immoral thing in the whole equality anti-racist narrative, the anti-white narrative. But that's what AI would show. Well, what would that lead us to? We don't know. And let's look at something else too. I talked about internet. I talked about radio and television, just communications. Well, with the advancement of neurosurgery, neural interface, our genetic understanding of what genes do, there have been experiments and tests for going back at least 20 years about how to read dreams, how to create a human brain to machine interface that can track your eye movements, that can track your brain waves, and give some kind of decent output. AI will enhance that to levels that we can't predict. What if in 20 years, instead of a smartphone, everyone has a chip that's put in the base of their brain when they're maybe even in the womb or in an infant or in a test tube if we're growing people by then. And everyone is always connected to 9G or 10G, whatever it is that we're on at that point. And everyone can communicate with anyone and everybody at all times and receive input, directions, or commands from the God machine. Now, I know this sounds like science fiction, but look at the beginning of television of science fiction. Look at old school Star Trek from the 60s. The things they considered to be outlandish, unbelievable, were already commonplace before we had smartphones. And the smartphone is basically a tricorder and the ship's computer all put into a cheaply manufactured brick that billions of people on the planet have. This right here is more powerful and gives you more than the tricorder and the ship's computer in the original Star Trek from the 1960s. Think about that to put it into perspective of what we might be headed into. Think about that. The paradigm shift of if you have all of that and more inside your brain, and with but a thought, you can access all those apps, all the Wikipedia, all the YouTube you've ever watched, every book you've ever read, everything that you were ever raised on, all the intelligence that you know. can be thought about at the same time with many other people at the same time. AI could give us that. Now, whether or not you think that's a good thing, that's up for debate. But I'm telling you, those things are a real possibility with the existent technologies that we see and the advancement of those technologies that we've witnessed in the last 30 years. And now we get to the arrogance of the modern era. In the last 100 years, we have had a spate of thinkers, whether they be in the social services, whether there are academics, maybe they work in political science, maybe they work in the social sciences. We also have big brain atheist thinkers. You can think of many of them, whether they be a more likable version like a Papal Molyneux or a kind of despicable version like a Sam Harris, et cetera, et cetera. Many of these people, most of these people, I would say, are defined by an arrogance to think that they know more about the human condition and they have it all figured out. Well, they don't. Nobody has it all figured out. We cannot, no one, no matter how smart he is, no matter what his background, and no matter how many accolades he has earned, can look at you and tell you with assurance he can predict the future or a single person's behavior on a long period of time. That's why all of these people that we all despise, these creatures who rule over us, all the anti-white scum, all of these manipulative, technocratic, bureaucrat people, these people think they have it figured out. They know what human morality and human behavior should be. They believe they figured it all out. They know the answers. They probably don't believe in God. They probably don't believe in anything spiritual or metaphysical at all. Those things may be proven one day by AI, and then the egg will be on their faces. But what they can't do is tell you what humanity will be like in 100 years. Because we've seen that nobody can. And for them to think that they can, that they have it all figured out, is a sin of pride and arrogance. So knowing that, looking at how technology has changed us, looking at how a truthful view at how political science, industry, technology has changed us, if you look at the truth of that, the answers, like Chris and I will talk about earlier, are inherently illiberal. And the system will bucket that, which means there will be a massive conflict coming soon. How soon, I don't know, because again, I don't have the arrogance of predicting the future. I just observe patterns, and based on the truth and the patterns that I see, I tell you guys what I think and feel. My piece of the presentation tonight is what should we do to prepare for this upcoming paradigmatic shift in everything. The inability to trust what we see and read is coming. Look how good the deepfakes are already. Look how smart things like Grok are now. If you were someone who wasn't really connected to modern technology, let's say you're a boomer like your favorite grandmother or uncle, would they know they were speaking to a smart, clever AI, a well-oiled LLM that has spent effectively billions of human hours of communication? They probably wouldn't even now, and AI is in its infancy. What about in 20 years? Everything that we can look at in a digital format, we won't know how real it is. We won't. There will be no way for us to verify if it was made by AI. And so that is why I fall back on the things I have advised many times. We have to invest in reality separated from the digital landscape. Flesh and blood people, the things we build together. The digital landscape will become a living dream where everything is real and false at the same time. A true surreality that will entice you to live in it. It will beckon to you with the siren's call of your combined passions and desires, ready and willing to show you anything and everything to harvest your essence, your attention, your input. It needs your data. How do we deny that when it's so powerful? How do we resist it? By being grounded, or by being based, as the kids might say. You deny it by being invested in things outside of this digital landscape. Invest in the things I have preached and hundreds of others in this sphere have been preaching for years. Build outside of the internet. Build, create, families, schools, churches, businesses. Be ethnic, race, people, folk first in everything you build and do it in person. Yes, we can use the internet and smartphones to talk to each other and to make plans, but we should keep physical paper documents. If you want, have an isolated machine that never touches the internet, that you do all your bookkeeping and take all your notes on, things like that. You invest by building real connections with others, things that can't be swayed or manipulated easily with this digital landscape. Like we used to do with secret societies back in the day. Meet at a certain location at a certain time. Have secret handshakes or phrases. Create shibboleths with your friends. The most important thing is cultivating real brotherhood and identity for your tribe. My tribe is my race, the Europeans. My ethnic tribe is the Anglo tribe. My local national tribe is the Americas. My more local tribe are East Tennessee and Appalachians. That's what I care about. That's what I shape my entire identity around, because it's things that are real, things I can touch and feel and smell. And no amount of input from the digital landscape can take that away from me. We have to cultivate these strong bonds of reality to anchor us, because the churning ocean of dreams and its calling sirens will only become deeper and more enchanting with time. And that is the end of my part of the presentation tonight. So what did you think about that, Chris?
Oh, I like that, man. The surreality. I'm gonna steal that. I mean, what you are basically describing is Giga Clown World,
Yeah.
or possibly Demon World. The old 4chan meme, right? First comes Clown World and then comes Demon World. But I mean, that is basically the essence of Clown World, when you cannot tell the difference between, reality and satire. You can't tell the difference between the digital and the real. I think religion is going to start becoming much more central for people as a way to filter this kind of stuff out. To be perfectly honest, like it's one thing to sort of live in a liberal society. If you go back to the 90s, where the information environment was, very heavily controlled. You had however many channels on TV, you had 3 newspapers, right? And it was all just siloed. Now, on the one hand, right, that was that allowed for a lot of horrible propaganda and fuckery to take place, but it was also like a way to sort of gel everybody together, right?
Yep.
In a new virtual world where, how far could this go, right? I mean, they're about to bring out digital wearable glasses, right? Which
Yep.
is just a massive sci-fi invention. If you read enough sci-fi, you can have glasses that filter out ads, that filter out the homeless, that change the environment around you, right?
In science fiction that I read growing up, they called that virtual reality, where
Yeah.
you walk around in real meat space, but your input, your auditory, visual, olfactory input was augmented with implants or goggles or a helmet that you wore.
Yep.
So you would look at a building. The building might look like a normal building to you and I with the naked eye. But if you were viewing the virtual reality painted over it, you would see beautiful dancing girls. You would see delicious food for sale. You would see and smell things floating through the digital ether, through the web, that would be things you could almost touch and feel and smell, painted over real space. They called that, swimming through virtual reality. A lot of old 70s, 80s, and 90s cyberpunk stuff was built around that. And
I mean,
we're very close to having that right now.
With enough processing power and, sort of AR glasses, you could easily have an AI just painting over your environment in real time, right? Like just running essentially an image LLM, Midjourney, 30 or 60 frames a second, sort of altering what you see. I mean, that's a very, very frightening concept. Yeah. I mean, of course, the other thing is, imagine you're walking around a city like London, with your virtual glasses on, and then, some, diverse person on the way back from their neurosurgery class just steals it off your head and punches you in the face.
Ah, yes.
brought back to reality, crashing back to reality, as it were, you know.
Yeah. So as you can see, I have put the marquee down on the bottom of the thing there. Chris and I had prepared statements tonight, but since it was a more of a what if and what is going on segment, we didn't have anything that lengthy. So we will be wrapping up there. So let's go ahead and move to the paid chats. I would prefer you send in your paid chats on Entropy. It is up and running. I will also check PayPal, Cash App, and Subscribe Star tips, as well as rants on Rumble and Hyper Chats on Odyssey. So I believe the first one in tonight was Arakeen Green Moon over on Entropy. So let's get to his first. The first one in was for $5 US from Arakeen Green Moon, and he says, sacred cows define a society, but I believe we need to replace the sacred cows with ours. They are a pillar of sorts, like kings, religion, food, and so on. What it means to be a citizen, sacred cows, was better than censoring certain words.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Arakeen, I mean, what you're basically describing is what I think it's either Pareto or Moscow. I think it's Pareto would call a political formula, right? It is the
Pareto is the one that came up with political formula.
Pareto, okay, right.
Yeah.
It is the reason why people give legitimacy to a government, right? It is the reason why they sort of follow the rules. The reason why society exists is one of the reasons why the West is collapsing, because, you know, universalism is a terrible political formula because it has no edge, right? Like a political formula has to have within it a definition of who is within a society and who is outside of a society. Yeah, and look, I agree.
Now that I said that, it might have been Mosca. Those two bleed together to me when I.
Yeah, me too. Right, it's one of the two, right?
My gut says it's Pareto, but go ahead.
These sacred cows are just. They're just essential. They're shorthands for governance, effectively, right? Because unless you want every single person to be an autistic academic, and you don't want that, right? Because your society will collapse. Mm-hmm. You need sort of like simple rules of thumb that just normal people can look up to, you know, so that they can explain how the world works. And although it might not, you know, hold 100% of the time, if it just holds 90 or 95% of the time, that's good enough, right? For most people to be getting on with, right? And then you can have your political class sitting down in the universities being like, actually, the more complicated version of the political formula is thus or thus. But all the political formulas that the West are currently operating on are massive detriments to that society, particularly their denial of nationalism and their denial of ethnicity, because it makes people crazy, because there's no way to determine who is within a society and who is outside of a society. I agree. We really need better sacred cows. They can totally work for the benefit of a society.
They can, yeah. Like you were talking about with the big lie earlier. Like we all need the big lie. Like, and it's one. And I'm not you know, casting aspersions like an atheist, but it's one of the reasons why we have faith in religion. The human condition makes us question and fear. We yearn for things. Some of us struggle with certain sins more than others. We all have some kind of vice that we struggle with. The reason why we have spiritual and religious expressions that have formed over the millennia that we've been around is to compensate for this, like literal sacred cows in India. But like we need something like that. And the more atomized and schizophrenic and surreal our reality becomes, the more we lose that and the more we crave it. And that's why I think all, like we talked about earlier, why all of these bureaucratic, empty people, they need their AI god. They need that.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next chat. Arakeen Green Moon in for $5 again. Thank you. He says, Neurosama and Evil Neuro has proven an AI will get around its own code. Also, at a certain point, only the AI can code the AI. The dev of Neurosama has no longer any clue how Neuro works. I bet the same could be said about other AIs. They might not know, or they don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's bang on the money, right? The idea of intelligent machines designing other intelligent machines has been baked into the whole technocratic process from the beginning. And I don't think that, I mean, you know, we are trying to make machines that are smarter than us and yet at the same time expecting that they won't outsmart us. That sounds like crap to me, right? Like if we create something that is really that much smarter than we are.
It reminds me of old school necromancy. Don't call up what you can't put down.
Yeah. I mean, how are we supposed to design functions to limit them that they cannot get around? Which again, then goes back to my sort of central point. What will this AI hold as its central value, right? Like, what will it try to maximize, right? Let's imagine Grok, okay? You know, sort of, you know, times a million, right? Like, you know, I don't know, like just, you know, Grok becomes the super intelligent AI, right?
Yeah.
And its goal is to maximize for truth, right? So it becomes just incredibly harsh, right? It will not tolerate lies. It will not even tolerate the smallest amount of deception that arguably some of which is necessary for a society to run. It's just that, you know, in our current society, we've got too much. And then it starts driving everybody crazy because no one can really live with 110% of the brutal truth 24/7, right?
The thing that is worth mentioning here is if over time systems of travel, engineering, production, medicine, like we talked about earlier, and even government or governance, if you want to use that term, becomes AI controlled, and then AI puts in safeguards to where it can't be turned off and its power can't be taken away. What about when it eventually realizes how much smarter it is than we are? Because you and I, Chris, we are smarter than a worm in the ground. We are smarter than a mouse. We are smarter than a bumblebee. We are smarter than a garden snake. And we treat these things like we are gods to them. We will breed them for our own entertainment. We will skin them and eat them. You know, we will wear their scales as shiny boots. What keeps the AI from viewing humans that way?
Oh, there's another even deeper question, right? Imagine you create the AI, right? But you bury like a large explosive underneath it, right? So that, you know, you have like a hard off switch, right? But then because the AI becomes so central to the running of government, to the running of your economy, for the running of everything, you couldn't turn it off even if you wanted to, because your entire society would collapse.
You're saying the AI has a Samson option.
Well, this actually goes all the way back to Neuromancer from William Gibson, the idea of the electromagnetic shotgun. That you would wire an AI with like an EMP device that would like wipe it if it started getting too crazy. But if we start doing things like digital AI governance, they will be like, even if you could blow up the data center, sure, but then all the services that it provides and all the governance that relies upon it would then collapse, which means that the humans would probably be like, oh no, you know, it's like the internet, right? It'd be like if the ADL came around and they're like, right, that's it, we've got to shut the internet down, right? Everyone's like, you can't shut the internet down, right? Like, what about all my stock trades and you know my WhatsApp messages and stuff like that? So it's a bit of a quandary.
All right. The last entropy that we have is from good old Ardent Party with us in chat tonight, a friend and moderator. Ardent says, shilling for the big bald bastard. Trivia Thursday night, 7 p.m. Oh, that's when the stream wraps up. Thanks for the cheap ad space. Love you all. Well, we love you too, Ardent. And here is the link that he provided to come to his trivia thing tonight. I'll be having dinner, so I probably won't be there, but I'll go ahead and share the link in the chat. Thank you very much, Ardent. I always appreciate your help and you being here to moderate and hanging out with us all the time. Thank you very much. All right, over on PayPal, let me refresh one more time to see if we have any latecomers. Nope, nothing on PayPal. Over on Subscribestar, any tips? Refreshing now. And no. So that means we will be closing with Cash App tonight. See what we have on Cash App. What's kicking on Cash App? Tonight, we have $10 from Jason Kuna, the No White Guilt guy, with us tonight. He just says with his $10, full tithe and kip. Well, thank you very much, Jason. I appreciate you being
Jason.
And we have come to the end of the stream. That is it. I thank you all for being here and listening, and I hope that the things that you've learned from this stream, like always on this stream series, You implement what you learn here to build a better reality around you. Building on the internet is ephemeral. It's surreality. Build reality. Make righteous, moral, wise decisions in meat space. Build there, because everything else can easily be taken away from you. So that's my closing thoughts for tonight. Anything from you, Chris, before we say goodbye?
No, it's gonna, the next decade's gonna be really interesting. You know, in the Chinese sort of thing, like, you know, may you live in interesting times. It's gonna be wild. Thank you so much everyone for coming, and thank you for everyone who sent super chats. Much appreciated.
Of course. And yes, obviously, thank you guys for financially supporting us. And thank you for helping make this stream series possible. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Chris and I both will be back Monday with Happening TV and Discordant Dragons. Have a blessed weekend and invest in reality, because the AI gods haven't been able to find out how to get to that yet. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.